We got some people tuning in. All right, welcome. So glad to see you over here. Let some other people into our Zoom room. So some of us are here on Zoom together. Some of us are in our Facebook group. If you're catching us on Instagram, welcome, welcome. So glad to be here with you. As always, my name is Amanda Hinman, and I'm joined with.
Helen Birney, nice to see you guys.
We are together for our Hormone Freedom, just our chance to help women create more hormone balance, freedom in their bodies, in their health, in their way that they feel in their life. So today we're going to be talking about a really important conversation. I think that's got a lot of buzz. People were interested because it's definitely something that comes up is if I had 90 days to fix insulin resistance belly, how would we do that? What would Helen and I
Mhm.
suggest? How can we help support you? And really, it's Jennifer Turner's tuning in. Hello, ladies. Great to see you. Thanks, Jennifer. Hi, Mitzi. Hi, we have a couple other Zoom people that I don't have your names. So if you want to put into the chat, let us know, where you're tuning in from. Nice to be here. Yeah, great to see you. And if you're catching us live, please put live in the chat. If you're on any of the platforms or if you're putting the replay and watching back later, you can put replay. Rita says, hello, great to see you. Hi, Rita. Great to see you in our Facebook group. Yeah, so this is an important conversation right now because women over 40 are doing more than ever to try and fix their hormones.
And one of the most common challenges for our clients is midsection weight gain. We hear it all the time. When you feel bloated before breakfast or almost like you have a pregnant belly, it's really frustrating. And Amanda and I want to say there's nothing wrong with you.
Totally. Absolutely nothing wrong. And the truth is our bodies change, right? Our bodies change hormonally and your symptoms are these beautiful little messenger molecules that give us clues. I like to think of it as like if we can put on that place of curiosity and wonder and understand like how can we decode these clues? Because our clues show up in what I see over and over, three very common hormone patterns. And until we map these patterns and know which pattern your body is in, and really which pattern is speaking the loudest, like what is asking for attention first, a lot of times we can spend a lot of time and energy trying to do things like change our diet and do certain workout plans or take different supplements. And we're getting really few results. It's Robin. Great to see you. Oh, hi, Robin. Great to have you joining us as well. I love that everyone's tuning in. Oh, and you know what? I got someone else to let in here, Jennifer, into our Zoom room. So apologize for the little mix up there. But that's why I always like to start any women that we support is let's start with a hormone freedom assessment. This is a complimentary free assessment. It's about 18 questions, takes, maybe 5 to 8 minutes to answer. And it's not clinical. It's really meant to help you recognize the patterns in the lifestyle circumstances that come up with your body, how your body is signaling to you. And it helps you to see that you are not random, that you are in fact pattern. And we find that there are three very common patterns. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the link in for those of you who are watching on, Facebook or in Instagram or here with us live in the Zoom. We'll put the link in here. So if you have not yet taken that hormone freedom assessment, then I definitely encourage you to start with that because, like I said, there are three patterns. I'll just really briefly give an overview of these patterns. The first common pattern is what we call energy and output fatigue. And this is where it feels like, okay, you're like, okay, you kind of push through and you kind of, push yourself through, maybe keeping your energy up, starting with your coffee in the morning, but then it feels like you just crash. Like you don't have that same resilience, you don't have the same stamina that you used to, and energy can get really low. And this often is tied to thyroid imbalance or suboptimal thyroid, and or it can be linked to blood sugar instability, what we're talking about today, insulin
Mhm.
resistance. The second type is stress response. And this is when we get stuck in that like cortisol driven dysregulation. This can be either like wired and tired, it's hard for you to fall asleep, you feel like you can't settle down at night, or the opposite, where it's just like I'm completely crashed out. Like I have it's hard to like drag myself out of bed in the morning. So that's the type 2 pattern that's very common. Again, stress response, cortisol dysregulation. And then the type 3 is fueling and digestion challenges. And this is more linked to absorption when we're eating healthy foods, but it doesn't seem like we're adequately able to take in the nutrients. So oftentimes it's poor absorption tied to gut health. And we're going to be talking a little bit more today about how your gut health is linked to insulin, it's linked to blood sugar, it's even linked to, yes, GLP-1. We're going to be talking about that because that's something that's really, really common and in the conversation of topic. So just thinking about that, if you haven't yet taken the hormone freedom assessment, please start with that. That will help you to know which is signaling the loudest, which pattern to look for, to know how to support your body in the right sequence first. And let's dive in. So if we had to look at, like I said, 90 days, if Helen and I were here to support you and said, okay, we've got 90 days to help fix your insulin resistance belly, what are the 5 things that we would do first? And this is really key. Before we dive into like what the actions are, because they're actually a lot simpler than many people realize, right? So it's helpful to give a little context of what is the situation? What's even causing this midsection weight gain, that's like really common, persistent challenge that so many of us face? Oftentimes women come to us and they're like, okay, my doctor checked my blood glucose levels. I went to my annual checkup, everything was fine, and your labs came back normal, but your belly still feels like by 3 p.m. it's totally distended and bloated. It refuses to budge no matter how stringent you are with your diet, no matter how much you're changing your workouts. And maybe you've even had those conversations with friends, learning about the GLP-1 medications, whether it be Wegovy or Ozempic or all the different brands that are now on the market. And you thought like, or maybe you're taking one of those, right? We were with many women who are in fact using the GLP-1s and the various different, classes of medications. The one thing that is important to recognize is whether we use that as a tool or not, is understanding how that works in our body and how you can, if you choose to use it, how you can safely go off and not have that fear of like, okay, everything is just going to rebound. Like all that weight loss is going to come right back. Because a lot of times when we think about Mounjaro, when we think about Wegovy, that it suppresses appetite, that it works, but there's some other factors, right? And Helen, like you obviously worked with some women in our group that use this or have these conversations as well. Do you want to chime in here?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to acknowledge that some of us may have a deficiency in some sort of chemical or hormones in our body, and we choose to go on medications as a tool to help us through it. And Amanda and I definitely work hand in hand with women who choose GLP-1 as a tool or any other medications that can help you on your journey to being your best self and your healthiest self. And it's no doubt that of so many women that have come to us and that I've worked with in the last 2 years or so that have come to me and said, Helen, I feel like I'm doing everything right, just like you guys are saying, just like what Amanda just saying, but nothing's budging. And under the care of their doctor, they've been advised to take a GLP-1, which has been really helpful for them. It has stabilized blood sugar. It has been able to help them release weight. And we celebrate that. And in our GLP-1 support group, in the weight freedom portion of Hormone Freedom, for those women who are on that track, we absolutely support them and honor them and the choice that they're making. And at the same time, support their digestion, support the thoughts they're having about themselves, support their lifestyle. Because without those key components, then sustaining that or going on a low dose or even coming off of it, if that's a choice that you want to make, is really challenging. And so that's why it's important for you guys, no matter what course of action you're taking, to really understand these 3 patterns, because that's what's going to help us or help you make the choices that are best for you alongside of the tool that you choose, whatever that is. So remember to take that hormone freedom assessment so you know which of the 3 patterns it is, because no matter what tool you choose, understanding your body, understanding what's going on for you, understanding what triggered any type of hormone deficiency is super important and a part of healing that root cause issue so that you can continue to make whatever choice it is that you want. Amanda and I are really just invested in the power of choice for
Yeah.
women, and that comes along with the power of knowledge.
Absolutely. And absolutely. And having the keys to understand what's really at play and what's going on. I mean, I think oftentimes what's missing in this conversation about the different class of GLP-1s and different medications is, and many women that we support don't recognize and don't realize that GLP-1 and insulin resistance, the part that matters most for your body is understanding how it works, where you're going to find balance. But we all have GLP-1 in our bodies anyway. We make it, right? You always have it. You've had it since you were a kid. The drug that everyone is talking about is actually the synthetic version of a hormone that your gut has been producing your entire life. Every time you eat a meal during your entire life, it produces GLP-1. So the conversation about GLP-1 is not necessarily about this drug or, just losing weight. It's the actual story is about this hormone that you already have in your body. And so let's give a little context, a little of the science behind it. I like to kind of nerd out on science, right? Helen always laughs. She's like, I like learning about the science. I think it helps us to have more sense of empowerment around these topics rather than feeling like, I'm kind of hoping and praying that this works. So what is GLP-1? That stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. It's one of the most powerful hormones in your body, and it is made in a place that nobody thinks to look. Like I said, it's in your gut. It's already available. Specifically, it's in what's called the L cells, which live in your liver or live in the smaller part of your small intestine, your colon. And when food reaches these L cells, they release what's GLP-1, right? And that releases that into your bloodstream. And that hormone then travels to different targets in your body. And it signals to your pancreas to release insulin. So you can start to see how this is tied to the conversation around insulin resistance. It also signals to your brain that you are full. So you don't continue to eat. You start to slow down how fast you're eating. And it also slows down how fast that food leaves your stomach and quiets that hunger signal. So it has a lot of jobs, right? So once we start to eat, this GLP-1 is released, and that has been doing that, like I said, every single time since you've been a child. Every time you eat, this is what happens. You never had to think about it, right? It just happens automatically because your gut has been quietly running the really sophisticated metabolic and appetite regulation system. What's so cool, I always like to nerd out with like appreciation for the complexity of our bodies, because they really are magnificent once we understand all of the different things that are happening. But here's what changes in midlife. Those L cells in your gut, they don't disappear when we hit perimenopause or menopause. They're still there. But three things that make the natural GLP-1 production happen that make it less effective at doing the jobs that it used to do. So number one is your microbiome shifts. This is the bacteria in your gut that influence how strongly those L cells release GLP-1. As we age, and especially through those menopausal hormonal shifts, your microbiome diversity, that's like the different types of species in your gut, tend to diminish. We just have less diversity, right? So that diversity, because it changes, it tends to weaken the signaling of those L cells that happen. The second thing that happens is gut motility slows down. When estrogen affects how quickly food moves through our gut, and whether it kind of moves slow or if it's moving at a regular cadence, a regular pace. And as estrogen drops, the timing of that GLP-1 release starts to shift. It makes your natural pulses that move food through the system a little bit less synchronized and kind of maybe smaller pulses. So this is why some women experience increase in constipation when they're reaching perimenopause or menopause. Like I said, it just changes like kind of that pulse, that motility that moves food through the system, if you will. And the third thing that happens in this season of life is your insulin receptors weaken. GLP-1 works partly by helping insulin do its job. Insulin is designed to partner up with glucose and then signal and take that glucose inside the cell so that it can create energy. But in menopause, insulin resistance goes up. And this is what happens where our metabolic function actually slows down, partly because of insulin resistance, but it can be because that same amount of GLP-1 that we used to have, it produces a smaller metabolic effect than what it used to have. So it's interesting just looking at the overlap. And this is where the conversation around insulin health and weight gain around our midsection kind of ties together with the conversation about GLP-1. So just like how GLP-1 changes during perimenopause when our hormone shifts, so does your body's insulin. And insulin often rises because that glucose isn't going into your cell quite as efficiently or as regularly as it had before. And this is why I like to, when we talk about, back to the topic of today's conversation is, if we had 90 days to fix your insulin resistance belly, what would we do? Well, the first thing to start to notice is glucose. Blood sugar level is always a very important thing to be aware of and to track. But oftentimes when you go for your annual checkup, they test your fasting glucose, right? Many of us have a fasting blood draw. But that number can look normal and it can look fine for many years when there's an underlying imbalance happening with the insulin, because insulin can be doing double or triple or even 10 times the work to keep your blood glucose looking okay and looking like it's within the range, when really your body is quietly gaining weight and starting to store that weight.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important for us to think about this, Amanda. And I know that we're going to go over the 5 things that we would do to fix insulin resistance belly in 90 days. So you guys have that to look forward to in just a second. But before we give you that information, it's like you can have all the information in the world about this and all the science behind it and everything that Amanda's saying and the 5 things that we would suggest that you do, and you can have that information. And it's really hard to move forward with it. And so that's why inside of our Hormone Freedom membership, we have a couple of different pathways that help you follow through. Number one, Amanda has her metabolic lab calls where you can bring your individual issues or hormone patterns to the call, and Amanda will give you action steps and help coach you through what that is. Number two, we have mindset and momentum calls. On those, we break through the mindsets that are keeping you from actually following through with the things that we shed light on for you, or the 5 things that we're going to share with you in just a minute. We can help you move through those barriers because it's easier said than done. Right? You want to be in community. You want to be able to set your intentions. You want to be able to follow through. That's what we do on those calls. And in the Weight Freedom calls, open and honest conversations about dieting, about GLP-1, about what it is that you might be going through, whether it's insulin resistance or you're not sure what's going on for you with your gut health and the bloating in the belly. No matter what it is that has to come with weight gain, we go through that in our Weight Freedom calls. And it's really important that Amanda and I hold space in a community for people who are going through this, because it's not always accessible to go to a dietitian and a functional medicine doctor and get labs and do all of those things. But for us to be able to provide this space for you, and in addition to it, be able to have live strength training for you, which is a bonus that we include in our membership, is at a really affordable price compared to hiring all of those people to doing it. And so we just want to make sure that you guys know that we're here to support you. And for this summer, for $147 a month, we have the opportunity for you to join that membership. So if you're not in it yet and you're curious about it, or the next 5 things you think to yourself, I really want to follow through with that, but I'm not sure how, then the membership is a great place for you to get started. So think about that. You can comment membership in the chats or in the comments below, wherever you're watching this, and we'll reach out to you and talk to you more about it. We would absolutely love to help you through it month by month so that you can actually follow through and take the action. And Amanda, what are those 5 things? I'm sure everyone's
Yeah.
dying to know.
Let's talk about those 5 things so you know what to do. And like I said, this is the key. We find, Helen, you said the power of being in community and having accountability and having just being in conversation about it is a huge game changer for successfully implementing consistently. But let's talk about it. So number one thing that we recommend doing is toss the snacks in your house. Yes, even the healthy snacks. I know that a lot of us have, healthy almonds or, little quick protein grabs and things like that. But here's the thing, every single time you eat, we talked about, this is triggering that insulin response, right? So when we think about resetting insulin, the only way that it resensitizes is in the absence of insulin. So what happens if we're grazing and kind of just picking up, oh, a couple bites here, or I pass to the kitchen, or I'm at work and I just kind of grab a little snack here, that is keeping your blood glucose levels perpetually elevated. And so we want to create distance and space in between our meals. So that looks like 3 meals a day plus one snack, which for some women, they're not even eating that much. So sometimes the conversation is we have to make sure we're getting enough nourishment to meet our body's needs for metabolism. But others just have a habit of grazing, kind of grazing periodically. I'll just eat a little bit here, a little bit there. And they never really get that break in between to give your insulin receptors that chance to resensitize, to be in complete absence of insulin. So the tip number one is to remove the snacks out of the house so that you can be very intentional with your 3 meals plus one snack and space out the timing of food.
Yeah. And before I get to number two, it just reminds me, Amanda, of that why do we go back to the snacks over and over and over again, and the anxious feelings you have or the stress response you have or the habit you have isn't a mistake. You may be, trying to soothe yourself in some way. That's something else that we address in the mindset momentum calls, because if that's the kind of thing that you're doing, you can't just all of a sudden switch that off.
Right.
Right? You need support to be able to understand what's going on for you, why you keep grabbing. It's not just a matter of to get rid of the snacks and whoop, I'm done. Amanda and I are here to help you with your mindset around that so you understand the habitual patterns around snacking so that it doesn't impact you as much.
Yeah.
So that
I
was a
think
sidebar.
Jennifer says right here, she's like, I either skip meals or I graze for a long period of time. So I think even this first step would be a huge shift. Absolutely, Jennifer. And I love that this was like helpful for you because that is so common, right? You're not alone in that, is that it's like either I'm so busy I kind of forget about meals, or then it's, whatever's around, I'm hungry. And so I'm kind of just grabbing and grazing. So thank you for sharing that because you're totally in the right space. Like we all can relate to that. And it will be a huge shift because it will give your receptors that chance to think of it like a reboot. They need almost like a reboot. And that only happens in the absence of the blood glucose for a period of time.
Yeah. You guys ready for number two? It's another simple one. Apple cider vinegar before your biggest meal. So you can do 1 tablespoon in water. If you add a little bit of lemon, it sweetens the flavor of the apple cider vinegar. I personally like to make a mocktail out of it, and I'll do like a flavored seltzer. I love mandarin seltzer and put a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in it. For most of us, your biggest meal is probably dinner time. I know for me, it tends to be that. So having this ritual of having the apple cider vinegar around that time where I might have a drink and instead have that followed by my meal really helps blunt the glucose spike by up to 30%. And this isn't some woo-woo detox. You've probably thought of apple cider vinegar or some sort of supplement that helps you detoxify, but the acetic acid literally slows the gastric emptying and blocks carbohydrate absorption. So it may sound really boring, but it's really cheap and it works better than half of the supplements that you might be trying to take.
Yeah, super powerful.
Yeah.
I love it because it's so accessible, right? These things don't have
Yeah.
to be overly hard. It's just a matter of the practice consistently.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So should we talk about step number three?
Do it.
Third, what we're doing it. All right. So step number three to help improve your insulin resistance belly in 90 days is to move your morning coffee to after breakfast. Yes, I know coffee on an empty stomach, right away, it's just going to signal your liver to dump glucose into your bloodstream. So when we wake up in the morning, having that first thing that we grab be a cup of coffee, that caffeine right away is just going to add extra glucose into the blood supply. So now not only are you skipping food right away, that would help to, kind of break your fast and prepare for that spike in cortisol. You're also adding to the cortisol spike before you eat anything. So unfortunately, I'm just going to say it bluntly, like a lot of women for many years are starting every morning in an insulin resistant state by 7 a.m. Just by that pattern, that routine. And so it's like conditioning your body automatically to start off the day already being insulin resistant. Yeah. It's just like a double whammy. And I know sometimes it's a little bit of again, it's going back to what Helen talked about in the Hormone Freedom Foundation's membership. We help you with the mindset around these changes because it's not necessarily complex to think about, but it can be a hard habit to break, right? If it's just been a routine and an automatic like pattern and a crutch that's been happening for years or decades, that can be there can be some resistance or some challenge around all of a sudden changing what the morning looks like. So that's exactly where we help you and help you come up with ways to understand how can we start this transition and make it accessible to really step into.
Absolutely. And Amanda, one thing that comes up all the time when I'm meeting with our clients is when they say, "Well, I'm just not hungry first thing in the morning."
Yeah.
Right? That's like the number one thing. Like, I'm just not hungry, so I wait to eat until like such and such, while they go grab their soy latte from Starbucks and then eat around 10 a.m. But Amanda, can you talk a little bit more about the downside of that? I know starting with coffee first thing isn't ideal, but this idea that, well, I'm just not hungry first thing in the morning starts to become that story that people tell themselves, right?
Well, it starts to become a story and it actually starts to become a hormonal reality because
Hmm.
here's the thing is when we enter, so ideally, if we look at, and this is why we do in our hormone freedom method, which is our 5 month program where we go into really specific customized support for women who want to understand, their functional lab work and where their body is. One of the things we look at is the Dutch hormone freedom or the Dutch hormone test, which I love because it gives you a full 24-hour cadence of your cortisol rhythm. Very different than looking at just one data point when you have a blood draw for morning cortisol. That's a piece of information, but it's not as helpful as understanding your cortisol curve, how your cortisol responds over a full 24-hour period. Ideally, the body has cortisol, does have this natural, what we call a cortisol awakening response, your CAR, and it's supposed to go up. That's what helps you to wake up and to feel alert, to feel ready, to feel energized to start your day. Ideally, when that happens, we shortly after that cortisol awakening spike, we then have food to nourish our blood support, our demand on the body, like what you're going into for the day, whether it be your cognitive demand, thinking about all the things on your to-do list, all the things that you need to accomplish and get done at work, or your physical demand, where you're getting up and you're getting going, maybe getting kids ready out of the house in the morning, or you're doing a workout in the morning, whatever the demand is, when your body is entering that demand with a cortisol spike in a fasted state, that already is going to prime your nervous system to stay in fight or flight more hours and more minutes of the rest of your day. So we know that now we are more hormonally sensitive after age 40 during the perimenopause years. It becomes more critical to have some good signals of resources that are available. So that means starting with a protein forward breakfast and having that, like I said, earlier in the day. So it's matching up with that cortisol awakening response so that your body doesn't think, oh no, I don't have enough energy. I have to store everything I get. I have to store fat and I have to store everything, hold on to everything I get because oftentimes I don't have enough to meet my needs and my demands. That when we have a pattern of not feeling hungry, it's because when that cortisol awakening response happens, your body has been purposefully blunting that hunger cue because it has learned, oh, I don't typically have resources to be available. So it's purposely blunting that hunger cue. That right there is actually one of the first signs in my line of work that typically there's some suboptimal thyroid and hormone signaling happening if you don't have a sense of feeling hungry for breakfast. So I'm glad you mentioned that because it is so common, and that just means, oh, we just need to re-support your metabolism and help fire it up so that you get those normal hunger cues and it can match with when your day is starting. So you can start with a high level of energy and start feeling recharged and refreshed for
Yeah.
what you have ahead of you.
Thank you so much for explaining that, Amanda, because I even see it with our gals who take GLP-1. They're just not hungry for the entire day. And I have one of the gals in the membership who takes her GLP-1 and it feels very slow moving for her and very plateaued. And this is a person who didn't eat breakfast first thing in the morning. She would actually eat it at 10 o'clock. And I kid you not, 2 weeks ago, she like accidentally had breakfast in the morning and we had been talking about this. And she was like, oh my God, Helen, you're so right. Not only did I have more energy, I didn't lay around in the morning waiting for my day to start. I got up in the morning and I started my day. So that's one of those energy things, right? Like she
Yeah.
recognized and knew, she felt that it was good for her body. She didn't like lose weight that day, right? She didn't like look at the scale and say, oh, I've lost. She focused on the way that she felt and the productivity and the way that the response that her body had to food helped her actually feel good in the day. And over the 2 weeks, her loss was actually faster than it had been before. And she was
Yes.
eating.
Well, she was
So,
charging up her metabolism.
right,
That's it. Your
exactly.
metabolism goes in conserve mode and it's just
Right.
holding on to everything instead of being like, oh, I have resources when they're needed, so I can just keep on burning like a well-oiled machine. That's exactly what it is. It's actually fixing your metabolic activity.
Right. And so many women just have it backwards, or they say they want to practice intermittent fasting. And, the truth is that, and like Amanda said, in the 5 month one-on-one program, we can do some testing to see about where you may be deficient and the importance of when you may be fueling yourself. But, we dismiss that so much because we think it's fewer calories and it's just simply not. So, yeah, really important stuff. All right, who's ready for number 4? Another really, really, really simple thing that I'm going to share with you, and it is cold water on your upper back for 30 seconds. So I know a lot of people who do a quick cold water rush. I actually recommend it to people who are having a hard time sleeping because it lowers your body temperature and then it actually relaxes you, promotes a relaxation response afterward when you're going to bed. But here's the other really interesting thing, because I said on your upper back, right? Your upper back is where brown fat lives. And brown fat is actually healthy fat. It pulls glucose out of your blood and puts you in fat burning mode without spiking cortisol. And most women are completely dormant because we don't spend as much time in cold temperatures like our early ancestors. We control the temperature in our houses with air conditioning and with heat, and we keep everything comfy, cozy. But that actually has created a problem for us because we end up not experiencing that natural blast of cold air or colder living situations where the brown fat can actually be useful for you in maintaining that the healthy fat in the body.
Yes. Yes. And it's so interesting. Like again, this is so simple. And I remember like when I first started this habit, I'd be like, oh God, it is uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good to be cold, but it makes a huge difference because it literally just think of it like it's supercharging your metabolism, right?
Mhm.
It's getting your body into fat burning mode, burning the healthy kind, and it's literally just um it's accessible. Like we all take showers,
Just
right?
do it.
Last couple 30 seconds of your shower, just turn around, turn
Breathe through it.
handle the cold, and you got it. All right, so should we talk about number 5, the fifth thing? So we've talked about 4 of them already. Number 5, the fifth thing that's really important is to have your fasting insulin tested. Now this is different, not fasting blood glucose. That's what is very common. Most of us will automatically have that for an annual checkup. It's part of your comprehensive metabolic panel. Good to know. However, like I said, glucose can look fine for many, many years while your insulin is working on overdrive, trying to maintain that balance in the background. And we've missed that signal. Unfortunately, just the way that the insurance is set up right now, it's it doesn't like, I guess the standard protocol isn't to look preemptively or proactively at how can we get ahead of disease diagnosis. It's more of wait until it's diagnosable, right? So we can tell when our hemoglobin A1C, that's another marker, which is a little bit better because it gives you an indication of, glucose control over a 3-month period of time. But really the star of the show is fasting insulin. Like I
Mhm.
said, fasting insulin is going to show this much, much earlier how your insulin control is and how that's working for you. So we want to look at your fasting insulin being ideally under 6. And that's something that often you have to request, you have to ask for if you're, working with a doctor, a practitioner, or functional practitioner. I definitely encourage that you ask for that. If you're interested in working with Helen and I, that's something that we can definitely support you in getting and make sure that you know what your fasting insulin level is, because this, again, allows you to be in that place of empowerment. Really, at the end of the day, I think both Helen and I feel so passionately about helping women to understand their bodies, to really be in that place of choice and to know, how can I work with my body? How can I start to look ahead of schedule and know, like, ooh, are things veering off in a direction where that insulin number is creeping up? So it really behooves me to be proactive and start to do some of these other practices that we talk about, like substituting your morning coffee until after you've, had some other things, or doing the 30-second cold shower. Knowing when and where that's a priority for you starts by knowing your fasting insulin number. So this is a really simple one. We can help you with this. Like I said, we've mentioned that we help in the Hormone Freedom Foundation's membership, in our Hormone Freedom Method. That's 5 months of personalized support. Also, if you're just in that place of, hey, I'd like to talk to somebody and kind of see what my body needs and what would be a good starting point, if you've taken the Hormone Freedom Assessment and you found out your pattern and you're like, okay, so really, where do I start? What kind of help would help me to see difference and start to get some traction? I always suggest to start with a Hormone Freedom Fit call. This is a 15-minute call. We hop on the phone and we're going to just listen to what's going on. What have you been trying? What's working? What's not? And where do you want to go with your health? And then we can point you in the direction of, hey, maybe the membership would be a great support for you. Perhaps you want to go a little bit deeper and look for, like I said, some of those functional labs and see where your body is right now. But either way, this is a no commitment conversation so that we can just genuinely hear where you're at and what would be the best support to meet your needs. But before we kind of wrap it up today, I do want to talk about common mistakes that do come up just because they're real. And I think when we can presence this and we can start to recognize the patterns and what to do differently. So mistake number one is treating the symptoms instead of recognizing the signals. So like if we're like, okay, I'm bloating and that means maybe I should cut foods and do more stricter elimination. I mean, I feel like that is very common as people start with like eliminating gluten, eliminating dairy, eliminating all these things. And then pretty soon you have so much restriction over what foods are even accessible to you, but it may not be addressing some of these earlier things that we're talking about. It could be an insulin resistance pattern from cortisol problems with your cortisol rhythm, right? We may not actually be addressing what's truly at the root if we're just trying to treat the symptoms instead of understanding the whole pattern. Another symptom is like, I'm feeling fatigued, so I grab my coffee, add more caffeine, right? That's kind of the quick fix. But again, it's not addressing the deeper root. Or feeling like you're frustrated with weight gain in that midsection belly. And so you just continue to cut calories and try and reduce the amount of food you're eating, but not seeing it change. So really, we want to always help you to point towards what's the deeper imbalance and how can you start to become more empowered and more knowledgeable to work with your body so that it gets back into balance.
Yeah, and that leads us to mistake number two, following generic advice. I know it's really tempting to think about what your friend did or what Instagram told you or what the latest fad is. That's how I wrecked my metabolism and my body and went in cycles of weight gain and weight loss for over 20 years, was because I was following generic advice and I wasn't seeking out the support to be able to understand what was happening to my body, what was happening to my mindset, what was happening to my hormones. And because of that, I got stuck in that cycle. So if you're the type of person, you're thinking to yourself, well, I tried intermittent fasting because it worked for so-and-so, or low carb is all the rage right now, or I need to exercise and go find the next thing that's going to kick my ass into gear, that might not be right for you. And so the result of doing any of those things, of following generic advice, is that you might be choosing the thing that's wrong for your body. So really important to get clear on that. Again, through working with Amanda and I one-on-one or through the membership, you can get more clarity on what it is that you can do for your body instead of continuing to follow generic advice that doesn't work. If you've been following that advice and it hasn't been working for you, that is a clue that you need to go seek some support in understanding what's actually going on with you.
Yes. And mistake number three is skipping the sequence. because sequence does matter. Trying to lose weight before restoring your metabolism, for example, cutting instead of actually getting your metabolism to be supercharged and working more efficiently and more effectively, or adding supplements before you've actually even fixed the absorption issue. Like these are just some examples of what many women that have come to us after working with multiple practitioners. I mean, we've had so many clients who've worked with like, oh, I worked with this doctor and this endocrinologist and this functional practitioner, and still they weren't seeing real traction and real lasting sustainable change. I think that's what's so important, is because not only are we looking at the physiology aspect, but like Helen said, the mindset and the internal habits and patterns and the way we think about things is absolutely crucial. And that is a really important, potent part of the transformation that gets to happen. So when we have an understanding of which pattern of those 3 hormone freedom assessment patterns is starting with, that's a good starting point. And then we can start to sequence, how do we create some traction with the physiology and those, nutrient pieces, maybe those digestion pieces that are going to help your gut. But then how can we also make sure we're sequencing support to get to the deeper layers of sustainability around mindset and around habits and patterns that will stick with you? So your body, it can't respond when it's like given the wrong thing when it's not ready, when it's not really ready to receive that type of support. So that's why the sequence is absolutely critical.
Yeah. Well, Amanda, at this point, I'm sure everybody who's listening is realizing something. You
Yeah.
guys don't need more information, right? You need to know what applies to you. And that's why we're here to support you. We're here to support you in these hormone freedom hours. We're here to support you in the membership. We're here to support you on that 15-minute call so that we can really listen and understand and help you identify what it is that is the root cause going on for you and find out the order of things that's going to help heal your body. And so I highly recommend taking that assessment, booking a 15-minute call, seeing what's going on for you, even finding out if working with us is even the appropriate next step for you, would be a part of your course of action instead of just kind of hanging out where you are and wondering, is this the way that it's going to be for the rest of my life? Because it doesn't have to be.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll go ahead and drop the link in for the hormone fit call. Like I said, this is a chance to go over your assessment results to see where your body is right now and really help you clarify what is it that would be the best support, the best next step for you. And it may be, like I said, one of the different ways that we work together and we support women. It may not be. We'll just be completely transparent and honest. Like our goal is to help you with where you want to go next. And, instead of guessing, instead of just kind of wondering and wishing, this is a chance for you to know exactly what your body needs and why. I'm seeing it in the chat. Jennifer says, thank you, ladies. So insightful. I have plenty to bring to the next time. Yes, plenty to bring to
Yay.
the call. Great. That's awesome. Well, just know that your body is not random. It's always here signaling to you and speaking to you. And thanks for joining us today. Any other questions before we wrap up? If anyone's in here and has some questions, feel free to raise your hand or pop into the chat and we can make sure to support you today. I don't see any coming through. Oh, thank you. Thank
We
you.
see some thank yous.
Very helpful. Okay, awesome. Well, you ladies have a great rest of your day and we'll see you again next week.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye.